Okay, Year 9. In this video, we're going to be having a look at our second last skill, which is population pyramids. So, the payoff or the information that we can get from population pyramids are as followed. One, just looking at it, if we have a look at the year, see here was Spain 2018. It gives us a snapshot for that year for the current state of the population. You can see down the middle, we have these different age brackets. This one, for example, here, I'll just highlight all the people who are aged 75 to 79. To the right are people who fall into the female column, and then the people on the right fall into the male column. And then the same down here, 10 and 14. And then we could compare which age group is bigger and then which one is smaller. The population pyramids have particular shapes, and they can point out historical events as well, which we'll talk about how to read those in a minute. The other thing that population pyramids are really useful for is that in the study of demographics and demography, we're able to have a look at where a country currently is and then predict the future trends of the population. Okay, it shows a snapshot of the country's destiny, and is one of the few things which we can take high probability from when predicting what might be a challenge for that country in the future. Because we know that people are going to age, and the only thing that might change that dramatically might be a war, a famine, or some sort of technological advancement. So let's start with the cohorts. So rather than each of these different years groups being looked at individually, what demographers do is we break these pyramids up into different cohorts. At the top, from age 65 to 100 plus, we have the seniors. This would be someone like my dad, who's just retiring at the moment. He would be in the senior category. Down here, we have the producers. This is aged from age 30 to just before that retirement age at around about 65. And this group here, called the producers, are the most productive cohort in a country or in a population mass. From a economic point of view or a country's growth point of view, it is the only age group that matters. They are independent, and the majority of progress will be done in this age group on average. I fall in to, because I'm turning 30 this year, as the date of this video is being made, I fall in this category right here, where I'm transitioning from the borrowers cohort into the beginning of the producers cohort. So the borrowers cohort is once you've left high school and you need to lump yourself with a bunch of debt. You might be taking on a car loan, a home loan, student debt if you go to university, or if you're doing a TAFE course, all those sorts of things. And it'll depend on how much debt you take on, how long it will take for you to start paying it back. But generally, this area here is a transition phase from the first cohort when you're considered a baby. And we can see that that ranges from 0 to 14. And I know some people who are 14 are probably being offended right now, thinking that you're not a baby. But this is the dependent phase. So you are a dependent. So your parents look after you, or your grandparents or your carers look after you, and the majority of your needs on average when you're in this cohort. The same with the seniors. So the people in the top age bracket and the bottom cohort bracket are dependents that rely on mainly this group and a small chunk of the borrowers. And again, they're all made up of individuals, so we shouldn't forget that. So I might come back to it every now and then. So my dad would be up in this category here. Mr. Hamilton is around about here. And my daughter Lacey, who's 1 year old, would definitely be in this baby category here, not contributing anything to society. Right, let's move on to naming the pyramids, because they're not all going to look like a actual pyramid. They're going to be sometimes a bit fat at the bottom, a bit fat at the top, or look more like a pillar. As you might see down here, we've got all these different variations. If you end up having a pyramid that looks like example B here, you can see that it is more like a column. It's not fat at the top. It's not fat at the bottom. It seems to be quite averaged all the way through. You can call this a stable or balanced population pyramid. The two pyramids that we really want to look out for and try to take information away from are the other two. If you have a look at F, you can see it forms a triangle with a large base at the bottom and narrowing towards the top. This is a young population. And then over here, we have what we call a aging population, where the base is narrower. Our producers working into our senior area is quite large, is quite fat. So there would have been some sort of event that would have occurred to have created this large cohort or this large generation to form. And it has its advantages, it has its problems, the same with the young pyramid. So if it's thin, balanced. If it's a triangle, it is young. If it has a large bulge in the center, we say it is aging. And the only last one we would have, but we don't see a lot of them, is that if you saw a large generational cohort at the top and almost like a pyramid flipped upside down, you would say that that is a aged population. So our next one is, how do we identify what year a baby boom, like what we have here in option D, occurred? Well, now we can go to our book and we can calculate it. So there was a baby boom that occurred in Spain, because we can see here that we have a tapering at the bottom and we have a fat cohort of producers in the center. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the most extreme point of that boom, which is around 40 to 44 years old. So I'll split the difference and say that's about 42 is where the bulge is. Get my calculator. This is a snapshot from 2018. So I'm just going to take the 42 away from 2018. Rightio. So what I have is 1976. So the baby boom happened in 1976. And of the last 100 years, most countries post World War II experienced some sort of baby boom, where you would have had reduced pregnancies during the time of the First World War and the Second World War. And then as peace was established and a new world order was established and people weren't worrying about what was happening, and if another war was going to break out, that's when the family unit was able to grow and unevenly so. I was trying to say disproportionately say so. Right, so we've looked at the cohorts, named the pyramids, identified the baby booms. Now we're going to work out levels of dependency. So, what percentage of, and in this case here, and we're going to do it together, what percentage of the country of Moldova in 2022 is dependent? So, relies on some other person or some other amount of people to look after them. The way that we do that is we need to add up the percentages outside of 15 and 65. So if I'm going to come up here, I'm going to draw a line there. So all these people up to the age of 14 are dependent. And then after, as soon as we're moving into the age bracket of 65, are dependent. So dependent, dependent, and these are non-dependent. So I just need to add up all those percentages here, all those percentages here. That will give me, that will give me the calculation. So I'll just try to do that nice and quickly. So we've got 0.1 plus 0.2 plus 0.4 plus 0.6 plus 1.4 plus 2.4 plus, and now I'm going to do the female side, 0.2 plus 0.5 plus 0.9 plus 1.2 plus 2.1 plus 3.5 equals, I'll just stop there, 13.5%. And now let's quickly do the bottom, 2.8 plus 2.8 plus 2.5 plus 2.7, 2.6 plus 2.3. It's 15.7. Add those two together. We get a dependency percentage of 29.2%. So 29.2% of the population of Moldova as of this year are dependent, relying on somebody else. Now the issue is that the higher that percentage goes, the more money from taxes or that the government needs to spend needs to go towards keeping people alive and looking after them. So the lower this percentage is, the better from an economic point of view, because you can obviously free that money up to improve quality of life in other areas. You're not spending them on daycares and you're not spending them on retirement homes or people's pensions and keeping people warm and fed and all that sort of stuff. Last one, and this one's probably the most interesting. Predicting futures. If we come back to our very first page, there are some examples of the challenges and also how to respond to those challenges for two different countries. The first one we have Turkey. So Turkey in 2014, we can see that it is a young population or a younger population. Therefore, it has a very high birth rate. It has a very young, motivated, dynamic population that we can assume from this graph. Therefore, the leader of Turkey or the leaders in Turkey need to be building schools, need to be building baby health centers, need to be supporting families and mothers. That is currently in 2014. But also, there is a opportunity for massive growth and economic prosperity in Turkey if all the other right elements are there. So think of it as you're baking a cake, that the demographics is like the flour that holds it all together, that you could have a non-corrupt military. You could have a good military for security. You could have all the right resources. You could have a democratically elected government going for you. But if your demographics are rubbish and you haven't got a good setup where people are going to be able to come in and become producers, then it's all just going to fall apart. Those ingredients aren't going to stick together. So down here, and this is the last thing we're going to cover, we have Germany in 2012. Germany in 2012 is a aging population. We can see that it had its baby boom sometime around the 60s. And this aging population, well, currently at the moment, you can see that it has low levels of dependency and has a large cohort of producers. And Germany's right now is the powerhouse of Europe, doing most of its industrial manufacturing. The issue that Germany has going forward is that if they want to continue to be the leaders in Europe, they will need to draw in migration from other places, people from Eastern Europe to come fill that younger population, because this group of people who are producers, you will get a inverse or an upside down pyramid, which means all the money that the smaller generation is making will have to go to looking after them, and Germany will not be able to hang on to its spot. So I think that's enough information for today. Remember your cohorts. Remember naming, balanced, young, and aging. The baby booms are these chunks here, where normally around the middle there is a huge bulge. And dependency, our seniors and our babies are the dependent ones who cannot produce and make money on their own on average. And then lastly, predicting our futures, which we just discussed, you can find on page 33.